Welcome back to the Mental Dietitian Podcast. I'm your host, Ahren Lynch-Potter, and today's episode is I'm going to be talking about addiction. Addiction. But I'm going to talk about it in a little bit of a different way because I think we all have addictions. Every single one of us. We have addictions to thought patterns, addictions to certain ways of looking at the world. And when I say addictions, let me define what I mean by that. Things, patterns, and behaviors that serve you, that you are participating in, that are serving a function, benefiting you in some way, that also can create suffering. So you can have substance addictions, behavioral addictions. I've worked with clients that have addictions to behaviors like people pleasing, or they have addictions to certain thought patterns where they just cannot get out of that way of thinking. They're stuck. They can only see it that way. It's a different perspective around addiction. But I think we all have addictions to some things. It could be the normal things that people think of, which is alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling. Or it could be the more nuanced things like I previously mentioned, like behavioral patterns, thought processes. I've found that some of the coaching clients I've worked with can be addicted to a particular emotional state. And some people might not like the word addiction or that use of it in this context. But from what I've seen, and in my opinion, that's what it is. An addiction is something that serves a purpose to avoid a feeling of some sort, is serving a purpose. So, for example, the benefit of somebody who's addicted to heroin is that they are escaping a feeling through the heroin. That's why they do it. That's why they started doing it. But then, unfortunately, it also creates a bodily addiction where the substance is also addictive. Some people are addicted to things that are not addictive. So the first thing that comes to mind is Gabor Mate talks about he battled with addiction and he was addicted to buying CDs. Buying CDs. Yes, you heard me right. CDs. Now, CDs are not an addictive substance, are they? You don't listen to a CD and be like, fuck yeah, man, I just need me another CD right now. Get me a damn CD. But the behavior is the addiction, the dopamine, the things that are occurring in the brain. And I've battled with the addiction as being part of my journey for sure. I'm very careful with words that I use because your subconscious is always listening. Let's just say in the past, if I liked something, I'd be like, how can I get 10 more of that thing? So some of you guys that you don't know, probably when I was in my early 20s, 19 to 21, I went through a period of time where I was really heavily into partying and I was hanging out with just interesting types of people. And I got into, allegedly, I don't know if this is a legal thing, I allegedly got into selling drugs. And I allegedly used to do cocaine before I would go to the gym as pre-workout. And this was a very dark period of my life where, looking back on it now, I was just in a lot of pain. My mum had gone through cancer about a year before that, around that time. And I just didn't know how to handle the feelings of it. That's all it was. I was just a young man that didn't know how to handle these big things. So I handled it the best way I knew how, which was partying, doing a bunch of steroids at the time, being with a lot of women. It wasn't even about that. It was more about, it was like this kind of, it felt like a game at the time, which I've had conversations with lots of young men about, is like, yes, I know you want to sleep with women. I get that you find them attractive. but you can hurt people through your dopamine addiction. That's what it was for me. It was almost like it was like a game. It felt like playing a video game, except you're playing with people's souls and you're playing with people's bodies. And it's like, it was, if you talk to most of the women, they'd probably be like, oh, we're just having fun. But at the time, it hurt me because it wasn't who I was. It's not who I am. But yeah, like I had battled with stints of being addicted to things where I really liked it. I've never been in a place, though, not once, where I have said, I need to stop this right now, and I couldn't stop. I've never been in that place. No, I don't think I've ever been in that place. I've had it go on for a certain period of time, like with smoking marijuana or things like that, or particular things. But eventually I really put a foot down and be like, okay, that's enough. That's enough now. And I've always been able to stop. But I can see, and I've felt at times in my journey of living on planet Earth, that I'm like, oh, I get this. I can see the slippery slope here. I can definitely see the slippery slope. And it's very scary. And every single person that I work with that has any kind of addictions to anything, the addiction is not the problem. It is the solution to the problem. It's like, well, what could the problem be? An emotional state that you are not equipped, you do not have the understanding, the frameworks, the support. Yeah, you just don't know how to deal with whatever's going on. You don't know what it is. It could be deep repressed. I said this before. Most of you know this, but I'll say it in case you don't know. Suppression is what you choose to suppress. Repression is unconscious. You don't know. You just have no idea. So some people most of us are walking around with both. Suppressed things where you're like, I just don't like talking about that. It's painful. I don't like talking about my brother or my mom or the dog that died or the breakup or the losing my job or whatever it may be. I just don't like talking about that. That's suppression. Repression is when you're walking around in the world and it feels like you're carrying something, but you don't know what it is. You can't put a name on it. It's just this thing that's in the background. And a lot of people feel that way. They feel like they're walking around in this world and they feel like that something was taken from them, but they don't know what it is. It's very interesting when I've said that to people. They're like, yeah, but I don't know what it is. It's like, yeah. I think it's the soul. I think it's your true self. I think it's your subconscious. There's many different languaging you could use around it. But if we just simmer down, what is addiction? Addiction is a solution to a problem. It's like, well, how could heroin be a solution? I never said it was a good solution. I never said it was a good one. It's a solution. How could gambling and me draining your bank accounts, if you have 3 kids, be a solution? Well, it's a solution to an emotional state that particular person is feeling. I didn't say it was a good one. I'm just saying it's a solution. So how does one work on addictions? Well, you got to feel your fucking feelings. Sounds simple. It's not. It's not for some people. I was having a conversation with a man who I work with yesterday. And he's a good man. He's just going through a hard time. And people have these stories, these things that they tell themselves. And there's lots of things that have happened in their life that confirm that story. And he said something, which is a story. He said it was a fact. He said, I'm like, that's a story. He's like, no, it's a fact. I was like, well, I didn't say this, we're at work. But the story is I'm really good at making bad decisions. That's the fact that this man has in his life. Well, if that's a fact, according to him, then nothing will change. That's almost an addiction. And what I mean by that is a story, a scaffolding, a mental scaffolding, a very thick vine or rope of programming that has, anytime that man has made a bad decision, a decision that has hurt him, it adds another layer to that, confirming this quote unquote fact about himself. Is it subjectively true to him? Absolutely. But as Peter Crone says, one of my favorite coaches in this space, he said, it's very real what you're saying, it's just not true. And what he means by that is, yes, it's real. Yes, that feeling of you not being enough, or whatever these things you tell yourself, it's very real. And all the things that you've experienced in your life are very real. But the truth is, you are incredibly lovable. You're not broken. You just have these deep subconscious currents. Or if you're at a beach, if you know what a rip is a riptide. It's this deep, fast moving thing underneath the water that will suck people out to sea. People have that in their subconscious and it runs their life. And you have a choice. You have a fucking choice in this life. You can either face your subconscious, you can either face it consciously and choose to look at it, or it'll flow through your life and it'll rule your life and you'll call it fate. A little Carl Jung quote for you there. You can either face your subconscious and face these things, or those things they're going to come out regardless. You just consciously choose them, or they're going to unconsciously flow out in your relationships, how much money you make, where you live, what kind of friends you have, what kind of things you settle for and what you don't settle for. Everything. It'll flow out of you no matter what you do. So you may as well turn around and face it. Is it extraordinarily uncomfortable? Yes. Is it the most rewarding thing you'll ever do? Yes. Of course it is. Of course, the hardest thing that you'll ever do in your life will also be the most rewarding. It's almost like grief. It's like working with a client right now who has lost his mother, and he hasn't been able to process it correctly or properly or have the space to, because it feels so big. I said to him recently on one of our sessions, I said, the degree of which you grieve that feeling that is so uncomfortable in the body, the dam of tears, the hopeless feeling, the whatever you're feeling around your mum, that is proportionate to how much you loved and cared about her. So you grieving and allowing yourself to do that is almost a respect thing to your own soul and yourself about how much you loved and cared about that human being and how much of an impact they had in your life. I know that when I lose my mom and my father, the grief will be astronomical. It's going to be huge. I can feel it now when I even talk about it. I can feel like the thread of it, of what it could be. It will be enormous. But how beautiful. How beautiful is that? What has this got to do with addiction? Everything. That is it. The avoidance of feeling those things through escaping, through video games, alcohol, partying, marijuana, scrolling through Instagram, people pleasing, numbing out, food, whatever you want, whatever, it doesn't matter what the thing is. It's the escaping from something that feels too much for you, feels like you can't handle it. You don't sit there long enough to sit with what's actually coming up. You're constantly running, you're constantly moving, you can't rest, you can't sit down and chill. You're just addicted. It doesn't mean you're an addict. It just means you have a thing that you're escaping from, and the sooner you turn around and face it, the less it will rule your life. And life will present you with people and circumstances over and over and over again to show you where you are not free. It will just keep coming back into your life over and over until you're like, wait a second. I don't want to participate in this anymore. It will also do that within family bloodlines. Alcohol. Oh, mom and dad drank. Oh, but their mom and dad drank, so I'm going to drink. And eventually somebody's like, stop. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm done. Will that be you? Will that be you with your life and your family? It's up to you. Can you do it? Absolutely. Good news is it's up to you. Bad news is it's up to you. If you need help with it, you know where I am. Reach out to me, Ahren Lynch-Potter on Instagram, elysiumintegration.com if you want to book a discovery call. You already know I can help you if that's what you need. If I'm not your vibe, find somebody else. You can do it with support, with vulnerability, whatever you need. You'll find it within yourself, but you sometimes need somebody to help pull that out of you. And that's what I do with people. And that's what a great therapist will do, a great psychologist, a great coach, whatever is your jam. I hope this helps. And I love you very much. Even if I don't know you, I love you because you're a human being on planet Earth and you're listening to this and you're doing your best. And keep going. You're amazing. And we'll see you next week.